10 years ago, Ethan's wife vanished from their lives, leaving him to face the chaos of single parenthood with 5 young children. Left to face the chaos alone, Ethan had every reason to break, but instead, he chose to fight. What he built in her absence was nothing short of extraordinary. Now, a decade later, her return would uncover a truth so profound, it would change everything she thought she knew. How do you rise when the person you trusted the most walks away? Ethan asks, his voice steady but charged with emotion. You turn pain into purpose, and you create something stronger than anyone imagined. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest stories. Now, let's get started. Ethan's mornings began before the sun. At 5 a.m., he would slip out of bed quietly, careful not to wake the children. The house was still, but his mind was already racing with the day's demands. The smell of brewing coffee filled the kitchen as he whisked pancake batter, a routine born from years of necessity. This was my moment of calm before the storm, Ethan reflects. Even in the quiet, my thoughts revolved around them. How to make sure they were okay, how to keep us moving forward. By 6 a.m., the chaos would begin. Dad, I can't find my shoes, one child called from the hallway, while another struggled with a forgotten homework sheet. Ethan moved swiftly, juggling forgotten lunches and untied laces. It wasn't just managing their needs, it was being everything to everyone, chef, coach, and comforter, he recalls. At work, Hamilton Construction offered little respite. The hum of machinery was a welcome distraction, but the physical toll of labor and the mental weight of home followed him there. There were days I wanted to crumble, Ethan admits. But every laugh at the dinner table, every sleepy goodnight, Dad, reminded me why I kept going. One evening, as Ethan sorted through the day's mail, an envelope caught his eye. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable, her handwriting. A rush of emotions surged through him, confusion, anger, and something else he couldn't quite name. Why now? After all this time? He wondered, his hands trembling as he set the letter aside. He couldn't bring himself to open it yet. The next day, amidst the noise of Hamilton Construction, Ryan, his supervisor, called him into the office. Ethan, we've been watching your hard work, Ryan began, a smile on his face. We'd like to offer you a promotion. Ethan was taken aback. A promotion meant better pay and a brighter future for his children, but it also came with longer hours and time away from them. Driving home that evening, the weight of both the unopened letter and the promotion bore down on him. The dashboard seemed to taunt him with its presence. It felt like the universe was testing me, Ethan recalls. Everything I had built for my kids now hung on 2 impossible choices: sacrifice more time or risk losing the stability I had fought so hard to create. That evening, Ethan sat down with his eldest, Ava, who had grown into a pillar of strength in their family. I was offered a promotion today, he began, his voice hesitant. Ava's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and pride. It means more money for us, but also longer hours. I might not be around as much, Ethan admitted. Ava paused, then nodded slowly. We'll make it work, Dad, she said, her maturity shining through. But the weight of the unopened letter still lingered. Later that night, Ethan finally unfolded the worn envelope. His hands trembled as he read her words. She wanted to reconnect, claiming she had changed and was seeking forgiveness. The memories of her departure flooded back, the confusion in his children's eyes, the nights he spent trying to console them, and the guilt he carried for not being enough. Ethan set the letter down, his mind racing. She left us when we needed her the most, he thought, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Yet, he knew the decision wasn't his alone. My kids deserve a say in this, Ethan resolved. For now, the only thing he could do was process the overwhelming emotions and prepare for the conversation to come. The next evening, Ethan gathered his children around the dining table. Their usual laughter and chatter were replaced by a quiet tension as they sensed something important was coming. Ethan held the letter in his hand, its weight feeling heavier than ever. This arrived a few days ago, he began, setting it on the table. It's from your mother. Silence fell over the room like a thick fog. Ava, his eldest, crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. Liam, the middle child, shifted uneasily in his seat, while the younger ones exchanged nervous glances. "What does she want?" Ava finally asked, her tone sharp. Ethan met her gaze and explained the letter's contents. "She says she's changed, and wants to reconnect with all of you," he said carefully, watching their faces shift from confusion to disbelief. "Reconnect?" Ava's voice rose, her frustration spilling over. "She walked out on us for 10 years, Dad. Why? Now?" The anger in her voice was palpable, but Ethan noticed a flicker of pain behind her words. The younger kids, though hesitant, had different questions. "Does she miss us?" one of them asked softly. Liam looked down, his voice almost a whisper. "What if she really wants to come back?" Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I know this is overwhelming," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But nothing will happen without your input. We're a team, and we face this together. Whatever decision we make it as a family." His words seemed to ease some of the tension, though uncertainty lingered in the room. Over the following days, the letter became a silent presence in their home. Ava remained distant, her frustration simmering beneath the surface. She busied herself with schoolwork and avoided eye contact with Ethan. Liam began asking more questions about their mother's life over the past decade, and the younger ones, in their innocence, started imagining what life might be like if she returned. In a rare quiet moment, Ethan found himself alone in the kitchen, the letter still on the counter. He rubbed his temples, wrestling with his thoughts. Do I protect them from the pain of the past, or do I let them see the full truth? He wondered. The weight of the decision felt immense. He knew whatever choice he made would shape their family forever. For now, he resolved to listen, to give his children the space to process and share their feelings. He reminded himself, this isn't just my story. It's theirs too. Ethan's days felt like an endless cycle of responsibilities. Every morning started the same, scrambling to find shoes, preparing breakfast, and making sure everyone was ready for school. By the time he walked into Hamilton Construction, his body was there, but his mind was often elsewhere. The relentless noise of machinery should have drowned out his thoughts, but instead, it echoed the chaos he carried inside. One afternoon, Ryan, his supervisor, approached him during lunch. "Ethan, you've been quieter than usual," Ryan said, pulling up a chair. "Everything okay?" Ethan hesitated, but he knew he couldn't keep it all in. "It's just life at home," he admitted, forcing a weak smile. He shared a brief version of his struggles, the letter, the promotion, and the weight of being both mom and dad to his kids. Ryan listened carefully, then leaned forward. "You're one of the hardest workers I've ever met," he said. "Don't forget, we've got your back. If you need some flexibility, say the word." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt like he wasn't entirely alone. At home, however, the tension was mounting. Ava was pulling further away, her anger evident in her clipped responses and avoidance of family dinners. Liam's questions about their mother were becoming more frequent, and Ethan struggled to find answers that didn't reopen old wounds. The younger kids, too young to understand the depth of the situation, asked innocent yet heartbreaking questions. "Do you think Mom still loves us?" one of them whispered as Ethan tucked them into bed. There were nights I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at the letter. Ethan recalls. It felt like it held all the answers, and all the pain. He knew he needed support, so he reached out to Lucas, a longtime friend who had faced his own family struggles. Meeting Lucas at a quiet diner, Ethan poured out his frustrations. Lucas listened, nodding with understanding. "You've been carrying this alone for too long," Lucas said finally. "You're doing an incredible job, but even the strongest people need help. Have you thought about joining a support group?" The suggestion lingered in Ethan's mind. That evening, after the kids were asleep, he found himself searching online for single-parent support groups. It took a few tries to work up the courage, but eventually, he attended a meeting. Sitting in a circle with strangers, he listened as others shared their stories of resilience and heartbreak. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was failing. Ethan reflects. Hearing their struggles made me realize I wasn't alone. We were all trying our best. The group became a source of strength. He learned practical tips for managing time, finding emotional balance, and giving himself permission to take a break. Bit by bit, Ethan felt himself regaining control. It wasn't just about keeping my head above water anymore, he says. It was about showing my kids what strength really looks like, not perfection, but perseverance. As the days passed, Ethan couldn't shake the uncertainty surrounding his wife's sudden letter. The questions lingered in his mind. Why now? What did she truly want? Ethan decided he needed clarity before moving forward. He reached out to a private investigator, handing over the little information he had, a photo, her last known address, and the sparse details of her life after she left. I needed to know her intentions. Ethan explains. If she was coming back into our lives, I had to be sure it was for the right reasons, not to disrupt everything we'd worked so hard to rebuild. While waiting for updates, Ethan felt the growing tension at home. The kids, sensing his unease, started asking more pointed questions. Do you think Mom is really different now? Liam asked one evening. Ethan's response was measured. I don't know, buddy. But we'll figure it out together, he assured, though the uncertainty gnawed at him. Hoping to relieve some of the strain, Ethan planned a weekend getaway to Blue Ridge Lake, a place they'd visited years ago as a family. I wanted to give my kids a break from all the questions, the doubts, and the tension, Ethan shares. The tranquil setting of the lake brought a sense of calm they hadn't felt in weeks. As they hiked through forested trails and sat by the water skipping stones, the kids slowly opened up. Ava, who had been distant and frustrated, began to soften. Dad, what if she hasn't changed? What if she just ends up hurting us again? She asked hesitantly. Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Whatever happens, we're stronger now. We've been through so much, and we've come out of it together, he reassured. The trip became a turning point. The laughter returned, and for the first time in weeks, the family felt like a team again. The youngest kid splashed in the water, while Liam sat with Ethan, asking about the life he had built in their mother's absence. I didn't realize how much we needed this, Ethan reflects. It reminded me of why I fought so hard for us. When they returned home, the investigator's report was waiting. The findings were sobering: financial troubles, unstable relationships, and questionable motives. Ethan sat at the table, reading through the pages. His heart sank as he realized the weight of the truth. She's not coming back for us. She's coming back for herself. Ethan knew he couldn't make a decision in isolation. He called the kids into the living room, holding the report in his hands. I have some answers, he began, his voice steady. And we need to talk about what this means for all of us. The day of the meeting arrived, and Ethan felt the weight of 10 years pressing down on him. He chose Oakwood Park, a neutral, open space by the duck pond, hoping it would ease the tension for the kids. As they approached, his youngest clung tightly to his hand, while Ava walked slightly ahead, her expression a mask of determination. Sitting on a bench near the pond was Emily, their mother. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her coat. The children hesitated, clustering around Ethan as they took her in. She stood and took a hesitant step forward. Hi, she said softly, her voice trembling. Ava was the first to speak, her tone sharp. Why are you here now? The question hung in the air, heavy with years of unresolved pain. Emily looked at her eldest daughter, her eyes welling with tears. I made mistakes, she began. I was going through things I couldn't handle. But I want to make things right. Ethan watched as the children processed her words. Liam finally spoke, his voice quiet. Why didn't you come back sooner? Did you even think about us? His innocent question hit harder than any accusation. Emily stumbled over her words. I didn't know how, she admitted, her voice breaking. The tension rose as Ava crossed her arms. It sounds like you're just here because your life fell apart," she accused. Emily flinched, but didn't deny it. "I've made mistakes," she repeated, her voice cracking. "But I want to try. Please, just give me a chance." Ethan stepped in, his voice firm but calm. "This isn't just about you, Emily. The life we've rebuilt, it's strong, and it's stable. If you're serious, it'll take more than words to prove it." He glanced at his children, his heart heavy. "We're not rushing into anything." The meeting ended with no clear resolution. The children left with more questions than answers, their emotions swirling in confusion and frustration. As they walked back to the car, Ethan squeezed Ava's shoulder gently. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together," he said quietly, his voice steady. In the days following the tense meeting, Ethan wrestled with the weight of what had transpired. The kids' questions came in waves, some direct, others hesitant. Ava was resolute in her anger. "We don't need her, Dad," she insisted one night, her voice firm. Liam, on the other hand, seemed conflicted, torn between curiosity and lingering hurt. Ethan knew he couldn't let emotions dictate the next steps. He sat at the kitchen table late one night, surrounded by legal documents he had been preparing for years. These papers weren't just ink and signatures. They were a shield, a way to ensure the stability and safety of his family no matter what came next. The next morning, Ethan called the children into the living room. Holding the documents in his hands, he spoke with quiet determination. "I've thought long and hard about this," he began. "No matter what happens with your mom, our family comes first. I've taken legal steps to protect us. This means no one can take away what we've built together." The room was silent as his words sank in. Ava's eyes softened, the tension in her shoulders easing. Liam nodded slowly, and the younger ones, though unsure of the weight of the moment, seemed reassured by Ethan's steady presence. "This doesn't mean we close the door forever," Ethan continued. "But it does mean we take control of what happens next. We decide how and if she becomes part of our lives again." His voice was unwavering, filled with the strength and love that had guided him through the past decade. For the first time since the letter arrived, Ethan felt a sense of peace. Whatever lay ahead, he knew his family was ready to face it together. A week after finalizing the legal protections, Ethan gathered his children around the dining table for what he knew would be a pivotal conversation. He placed a folder in front of him, his hands steady despite the gravity of the moment. "There's something I've been working on for years," he began, looking at each of his children in turn. "This isn't just about protecting us now, it's about building a future for all of you." The children leaned in, curiosity replacing some of the tension that had lingered for weeks. Ethan opened the folder, revealing documents and plans he had carefully compiled over the past decade. "I've been saving, investing, and planning for this family. I wanted to make sure that no matter what happens, you'll always have opportunities, college, stability, and a chance to follow your dreams." Liam's eyes widened as he flipped through the pages, spotting accounts and plans with their names on them. "You did all of this for us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his own voice thick with emotion. "Every long night, every extra shift, every moment of doubt, I did it all because I believe in you. You're my family, and I wanted you to know that nothing will ever change that." Ava, who had been so guarded, wiped at her eyes. "Dad," she said softly, her voice breaking. "We've always known you've been there for us, but this is more than we could have imagined." The room grew quiet as Ethan continued. "This isn't just about money or security. It's about showing you how much you mean to me and how much we've grown together. We've built something strong, something no one can take away from us." As the children hugged him one by one, Ethan felt a weight lift. For the first time in weeks, the house felt light again, filled with warmth and hope. In the weeks that followed, life at home found a new rhythm. The tension that had once dominated their days slowly gave way to a sense of peace. Ethan noticed the changes in small moments: a shared laugh at dinner, a quiet conversation between siblings, the unspoken warmth that came from knowing they had faced the storm and survived together. Ava, who had carried the most anger, began to open up. One evening, she sat with Ethan on the porch, watching the stars. "I was scared, Dad," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought she'd take everything you worked so hard for." Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I was scared too," he said softly. "But look how far we've come. No one can take away what we've built." Liam, always curious, started asking deeper questions about their future. "What's next for us, Dad?" he asked one afternoon as they worked together in the yard. Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Anything we want, son. The hard part is behind us. Now we dream." Even the youngest children, blissfully unaware of the complexity of the past months, seemed to thrive. Their laughter filled the house, a sound that Ethan hadn't realized he'd missed so much. Every giggle, every smile, it was a reminder that we made it. Ethan reflects. One weekend, the family gathered around the dining table, their bond stronger than ever. As they played a board game, Ethan looked at his children and felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "This is what I fought for," he thought. Not perfection, but moments like this, simple, honest, and full of love. Reflecting on their journey, Ethan later shared his thoughts. "Our story isn't just about survival," he said. "It's about resilience, about proving to ourselves that we are stronger than the challenges we face. Family isn't perfect, but it's worth every fight, every sacrifice." Ethan's journey reminds us that life is unpredictable, filled with challenges that test our strength and resolve. But it's in those moments we discover what truly matters: love, family, and the power of resilience. If this story moved or inspired you, subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the courage to overcome, the beauty of connection, and the unshakable bonds that hold us together. And so, the story ends, not with a perfect resolution, but with hope and strength, a testament to what it means to rebuild, to grow, and to love unconditionally.